everybody.
Hello. How's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah, we're still waiting for people to come on in the chat.
How you doing
And
tonight,
of course,
Angela?
hmm, and of course, everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I trust that everybody had a great Thanksgiving. How about you, Chris?
Oh, mine was fantastic. Lots of food, friends, family, and of course more food, followed by a third round.
yeah, lots of food. That's the main thing. Oh, and then we have some people coming in the chat. So, of course, if you want to, request a reading, just put a request in the chat, and they'll do a rune reading for you. And of course, I did a little video this Sunday about different paranormal experiences I had, and one of them I did mention some spirit pets. And at a reading I did this past Sunday, this son and mother and son sat down with me, and the first thing I saw was their dog, and the dog was very clear to me.
Wow.
And I right away sketched the dog, and he's like, "That's him, that's him." And I said, "Well, he used to spin. He used to like to spin." And he says he was made to spin. That was one of his tricks. He made to spin. And I said he used to love to jump around the leaves in the yard. He just liked to jump, 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 and when there's lots of leaves in the yard and most of the I said to the son, I said, he says there's a lot of music coming from your room. And he says, yes. And his mouth just dropped. And it's like, that's him. That's, I have a lot of music in my room, he said. So definitely this beautiful dog is always going to be there with him. And this dog assured me that he's going to be there when he's ready to go. This dog is going to be there right with him when he's ready to go and meet him on the other side when he passes. And so, he said, especially he sent this message. He said, "I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You loved me like a person, not like a dog."
That is
They
wonderful.
appreciate they appreciate us, and they let us know that they're grateful for us.
Oh yeah, even when animals cross over, they still come back to visit because it's their home or their family. So
Absolutely. A long time ago, I had a dog named Sam that passed away, and Sam was with me for nearly all of my life. We got him when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and he passed away when I was graduated high school, so I was about 18 when he passed. So he lived a long time. And then one day I was just trying to take a rest, and it was in daylight, and it had been months later, and for some reason I felt anxious and just couldn't get to sleep. And then my door opened by itself. I usually kept the door shut, but the door opened by myself, and I heard Sam come in, and I heard his little toenails on the hardwood floor, and I hear him make that big thump sound like he threw himself down on the floor like he
yeah,
normally does, and I felt such a sense of peace. And then I realized, oh, he's passed. And then he started showing up in my dreams and was communicating to me in my dreams. If I had a number of pets that visited me after they passed. I had a dog named Rusty. He just appeared as an apparition just in the middle of church. Just appeared as an apparition. He was kind of floating above the pews. And my dog Molly, every time I'd ask her a sign, she would give me a sign. She was a
hmm
collie, about 75 pounds, a full size collie, black and white. And one day um, I was out and I saw this other collie in the middle of a park, and I said, "I a sign if you're still with me, make sure that collie refuses to leave until I pet him." So the collie refused to leave until until he got petted by me, and she barked. She had this disembodied bark next to my bed. She missed the middle of the night. I just said speak, and I heard her bark. And interesting too, she didn't like other dogs. So for a while, when I would walk around as after she had passed, the other dogs would act nervous, like they see another dog with me. And I'd have to say to her, Molly, please be nice to other dogs. And when I said that, they were fine again. So I know Molly was with me for a very long time, watching over me, and I'm sure she'll be there when I pass. I'm sure she'll be right there jumping up on my lap, even though she's like 70 or 80 pounds. She's bigger than I
Oh yeah.
am.
I lost my
Absolutely.
cat. Lost my cat. Oh, about what, 5 or 6 years ago, and there were times even to this day I still feel it come around once in a while. And I went to a convention 3 years ago, I guess it was, up in I forgot what town, but there was an animal psychic there. Now I let her read me just to see if she could get anything, and I asked her if she was picking up on my if she could pick up or sense my cat that was running messages. And I didn't know she really could speak to animals. Now she was very bubbly and laughing and joking around. I didn't know she could really pick up on my cat. So she starts saying things. Oh yeah, he comes around. He still sees you. But that's to me that wasn't convincing. So I we would talk some more, and I said, well, how do I know that you're really um with my cat, or how do I know that my cat's you're really seeing my cat? And she said, well, he laughs at all your jokes. Well, okay, that's convincing enough there.
Yes, cats are. They come around, they visit, but they're very observant, and it's like they tell you every detail too.
Oh yeah,
And me being an artist, I paint what I'm seeing, so they recognize their cat in the painting, and they get to take the painting home with them. And I've had cats, they'll say like, okay, I was in the kitchen when I was at home. I like to hang out in the kitchen, and there was my favorite sunny spot in the kitchen, and there was a cat on either side of me. I would be in between, and I'd make sure I got the sunniest spot.
yep,
And and then this cat would tell me, yeah, and also I'd hang out in the driveway. There would be 3 cars parked in the driveway, and there would be 2 other cats, and I'd always be under the cars or in between the cars, but somehow nobody would run me out because I knew what I was doing. And at work, when I was taken to work, my favorite place to hang out was in the bathroom. I'd follow my person right to the restroom and stay there. And the lady I was reading for, she was really amazed because, yes, and I was able to describe her kitchen and then the cars in the driveway and her house just based on what the cat was showing me. And she was a veterinarian, so she took her cat to work, and the restroom was the cat's favorite place at work. And cats are they're very observant. With dogs, they see more about the person all the time, like
right,
that person's traits, with their habits and things like that. Not so much the house or their surroundings, but the cats take in the surroundings and are very
yeah,
precise where they were around your house, and if there's other cats around. He was also the reading I did with the veterinarian. I was also just able to describe his favorite buddy, his favorite cat buddy. He was kind of a blonde-looking cat, and he said, "Yes, that was his friend. His favorite cat buddy was this blonde tabby." So they're very detailed in their communication when it comes to cats, for sure.
oh yeah. Because dogs tend to be more. They want to stand next to a person and be more
Hmm.
of a comfort, whereas cats will tend
Right,
to stroll around and observe more, like you're talking about. We
right.
did a ghost we did a paranormal ghost hunt once, and we actually captured the image of a dog in the corner next to a chair where his owner would always sit.
Oh wow,
Yep.
wow. Now, when I had a dog named Mitzi who passed away, she had a habit of barking at my pet birds, and she would come upstairs and bark at them. And after she passed, I heard her run up the stairs, go to the case. I heard her sniffing around, starting to bark at the birds. And I said, Mitzi, you have passed. You're out of body. You don't have to be barking at birds. You can go anywhere you want. now that you passed away, you're not attached to a body anymore. And then I didn't hear from her again. So she must have ran off and was chasing the wild birds at that point. And also, I mean, horses are in a similar fashion. They are observant, and then they are concerned with their person, and they are very emotionally intelligent. I mean, horses, when they come around, and some of these horses will stay with families for multiple generations,
Oh
which
yeah.
I did a reading with somebody, and this horse was so smart, so intelligent. He talked about the ancient times, back in the British Isles, when this person's distant ancestor had this horse and was their war horse. You know, they would fight off this horseback, and this horse stayed with this family for thousands of years.
Yep.
And when I did this horse and I painted the portrait of this horse, I had no control over my hands whatsoever. It was so much power flowing through me. The horse was completely painted with a lightning bolt next to the horse, and it was
Whoa.
black, and it had, yeah, with a lightning bolt next to the horse, to show its power. And it was so powerful an experience. It only took me 5-10 minutes most, and the horse was completely drawn with the lightning bolt and with the moon in the stormy sky. I mean, I never painted anything so fast in my life, because there was just so much power in that presence of that horse, that was encouraging the person to take risks, because the horse
Yeah.
was feeling that she wasn't being too daring enough, and that she needs to get out there and travel and explore the travel and learn through traveling. And because she was so shy and so introverted, I mean, she was the exact opposite her ancestors were. And the horse was like, come on, it's time to get a hold of life now. You're young. Let's embrace life and move forward with it, and have an adventure. I also did a reading with a horse that had passed, with somebody who was, this woman's horse was her favorite horse. And I started painting the horse and all the details, the description. He had like half a star here, just a little bit of a star here, and started to paint this horse. She said, "Yeah, that's my horse," and she just started to cry. And he knew so much about her personal life. It was unbelievable how much he knew and how detailed he got. It was like he was falling around every single day. It was amazing just how much he knew and how observant and how faithful he was still staying to her. And then I see that somebody in the okay, I hope I pronounced your sign on name, Dianomly, I think. I had a horse that was so dear to me who passed. I left heartbroken, but he came through in a reading once. Yeah. And I feel like, when our pets die, whoever we have a bond with, they are with us. Even if you don't feel them around, or think that they're not around, they are still there, and they listen to us. And you can ask them to show you a sign that they're there, and they're more
Right.
than happy to oblige. And you can ask them to come to you in your dreams, and they will oblige. They will show up in your dreams. They don't have a problem with that.
No, no.
They seem to do
My
that more
cat comes.
easily than people.
I was going to say my cat comes to my dreams quite a bit. I'll see it in my dreams, and a lot of times I learn a message or get a message from my cat.
Mhm.
And even we as humans, when we pass away, we can come back in the form of an animal if we want. I think we're allowed to come back and be basically
Mhm.
anything we want. We don't have to necessarily be a human again.
Now, wouldn't it be great to be a spoiled cat? And it would be great to be somebody's spoiled cat. That would be great. I think that would be a wonderful experience.
Because one of the reasons I bring that up is because my grandfather passed away, and his favorite thing was cardinals. And so when he passed away,
Oh,
next thing you know, a cardinal comes to the window, like maybe a month later or so, and just hovers at the window looking in.
wow. I've had insects do very similar behaviors. The most remarkable, I know it was a message, I had a katydid. Katydids, they usually don't like to be with people too often. And if you're familiar, with katydids, they're kind of like a grasshopper or kind of
Right.
insect. And this katydid wanted to just be with me, and this katydid landed on my arm and was cleaning me. And I was reading about katydids, and katydids don't clean people. They never clean people, but I have it on video. This katydid would not leave, and she kept cleaning me, and I would gently just lift my finger up and just put her on a bush nearby, and then she would come right back and start cleaning me again.
Yeah.
And I know that was a message. I know that she was being an insect totem, and I know that she was being a messenger. And a lot of times, even insects will be there for you. I hear a lot of people talk about the praying mantis, which I've seen a lot of praying mantis around here, and I'm seeing them more around here.
Yep,
And
I've seen my share of those
butterflies,
as well.
moths. I
Yep.
did have a message that came from um, a particular moth. I think they call it. They named the moth after the Cyclops, right after Poseidon's son. What was his formal name? This moth. And it came right to my front door and would not leave my front door and wanted to stay with me all day, and that was very special. And
Oh yeah.
I appreciate all the messages from the insects and all the birds and the trees and the plants. And I've even had messages from roses. I had a very special rose bush and had an incredible dream, and I was like, this rose bush is conscious and reaching out to me. And we had a close link with this rose bush. And in this rose bush, as long as I was near it, it was happy.
Well,
So even with
they say that all things, whether it be plants or animals, everything has a conscience. Everything is a living thing. So they can communicate to you one way or the other.
hmm
Because that this is not a joke. There was a test done recently. I can't give out names, but they had two plants, identical plants, and they had these students from a school. This one group of students would talk really beautiful and pretty to the plant, and this other group would talk to this other plant, which is the same type of plant. They would talk mean and kind of be belligerent to it. The plant that got the belligerentness died a few weeks later, but the plant that was spoken nice to blossomed and flourished.
Oh wow.
Yep.
And I've had runes um, reach out to me. I was just on a weekend trip, and I was at an archery competition. I wasn't participating; I was watching, and I was standing near a bush, and there was a caterpillar that was gnawing on the leaf. But instead of gnawing on the edge of the leaf and just taking these half moon bites, this caterpillar made drew well 8 rune letters into the leaf and was literally spelling out a message letter by letter
Oh,
in the leaf.
that would have been
And
something to see.
oh my
Wow.
gosh, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it what I was seeing. I know land goose was one of them, and Ing was the other. And these aren't simple runes. These are complex. They're you know. And then I think Raitha was the next one, and these are complex. I mean, you can't make these by accident. You have to sit down and consciously make those shapes
Oh yeah.
to get the message across. And it was just incredible to see. And that's when I was first getting into runes, was learning about them, and I got introduced to them. And I was wondering like how they communicate, and it will be a sign from the spirit world to me. And I just happened to look at the caterpillar on the leaf and see that he was actually chewing the runes into the leaf.
Yep. And so just to throw a question out here, when you pass away, if you could come back to be anything in the world, what would you come back to be? An animal, a person, or do you have a preference?
I know I'm going to come back as somebody that doesn't pay any bills, or an animal that doesn't have
Yeah.
bills to pay.
If I had to
Oh,
pick, I'd probably come back. I'd probably come back as a bird. That way, I can fly
mhm.
around and just see everything. You don't have there again. Don't have to pay bills. Just explore the world.
Just explore the world. Yeah.
Right.
And some birds will, especially the albatrosses, they'll spend all of their lives and they fly long distances, right? Thousands of nautical miles. And then you have hummingbirds that will fly thousands of miles and they're teeny tiny, but they do migrate to South America and back. They do have that long migratory trip where there are some birds that stay on all through the
Yep.
winter. And if you're a duck, you could swim, walk, and fly, and don't have many limitations there. Also, you'd like to be a dolphin. Yeah, a dolphin would be nice. It'd be nice, and because dolphins are very social, and they're one of the big brained animals. So dolphins, elephants, and then primates, the bigger
Right.
brained
Right.
animals. And I would think a horse would be nice. Being a nice horse, be treated well, and that freedom of movement, the joy that you see that horses have once they get running is you could tell that they're having a lot of fun. I think it would be nice to be a horse, and you have that bond and the relationship with the other horses and with their person. So I
Yeah.
think
And
a
if there's
horse would be
anybody listening, if you've had animals come back to you in your sleep or dreams, or even come back as an apparition, let us know in the chat room. We want to hear. I live out in the country, and so if you go out at night, just go out at night, say around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the summertime when it starts to get dark. Just sit back and listen. You can hear horses, footprints. You can hear a lot of like past animals running around or playing. And sometimes if you watch closely enough, you can see almost like a bright orb as you hear those sounds moving. It's
wow,
wonderful.
wow,
And there's been times I have a special camera that I use for paranormal investigating. I got multiple cameras, but there's one camera that always seems to capture evidence for paranormal. And I was outside one incident doing a investigation on our property. One photo I took more than one photo, but on one of the photos you saw in this one corner over at least 20 different orbs, and some of them were really bright red. There were some green, yellow, different colors, and it's couldn't tell for sure, but how many of those orbs were animal spirits and how many of those were human? Of course, never know, but it just goes to show that they do still come around, whether it be humans or animals. When you pass away, you still do come around at times.
yeah. I live in the country too, and actually, I've done remote viewing and different haunted places, and sometimes I will pick up animals. There's animals around here I know that have passed. I've had I pick up on birds and things. You can kind of see the living animals interact with the spirit animals, but then you also have in other places where well, the very first paranormal investigation I did were on a private residence. I was taken to a house. They didn't even tell me the address, so the paranormal group didn't tell me the address. They're just going to drive me to the house, which is fine. And I was picking up the time frame, the 1940s. I was seeing the prior structure, everything that was from the 40s, but I also was seeing a cat. And then the prior owners had a cat that was still coming around. And then the new owners, when the new owners would do laundry, the prior owner's cat would come around and rub against her legs like she was doing the laundry. So they'll hang around. They'll hang around for years, even centuries, even I believe, because I've even had extinct animals, appear in my dreams. There's one animal that kept coming to me was a female. It was a giant, short-faced bear, and those have been extinct
Whoa.
since the last ice age. And it was very special to have this animal. And then then we're starting to learn more about recently, just learning about a little bit maybe what their behavior was like. But they're they're kind of a funny build. They call them giant short face. Yes, they do have a very short snout, but then they have very long legs, and then you have this big
Mm-hmm.
round body shape at the top. It
Yeah.
kind of looks like a potato with long bell bottoms on, walking around. Um, she was very very sweet. And bears, that's another intelligent animal that spirit animals, spirit totems that come through, especially in difficult times. And when they say times are a bear, you can actually it is and ask for bears' help to come guide you through this because bears are very resilient and there's so many different species of bears. Just pay attention in your dreams or maybe look around you. Maybe you may see a lot of ads of bears in it, or you might see somebody, walking down the street that has some sort of bear logo in, and it's like, why am I seeing all these bears around all the time? Well, it could be your spirit animal's a bear and is trying to reach out and talk to you. And another animal I think is good for the difficult times would be a bull. I've had bulls come around and spirit bulls protecting uh, people. And that's what bulls do. They protect their families. That's their job. They protect the cows. They protect their babies. They're like the ultimate dad. They'll take care of the babies and they'll babysit. They'll take care of the cows. Bull is another one. Those two animals, I think, are the most one of the most powerful. Well, they're the most powerful for as tough times for most people. I think you'd have to meditate and let your spirit animal come to you. But
Right.
bears and wolves are the most common that I see during difficult times, where those spirits will show up as guides and protectors.
And one thing I was going to say is for those out there that are listening, if you have like something you're worried about, or maybe you just need guidance in life, ask your spirit animals or spirit guides to come to you in your dreams and guide you or give you a clue or maybe show you what the right path is, send you a message. They will come to you in your dreams, and if you pay attention and try and leave a notepad or paper down next to where you sleep, because when you go to sleep and you have those dreams and you get that help or that message you're looking for, when you wake up, write it down immediately before you forget. Because so many times I've had even like witnesses when I work with UFO cases and stuff say that they had messages in their dreams, and when they woke up and went about their day, they forgot what the message was because they didn't stick with them long enough. So I always say, write it down, keep a notepad, and that way you can go back and look at everything later on and say, "Oh, okay, yeah,
And the runes have association with different animals too. There's animals that appear in the runes, and for example, algae, which is um, the rune that represents sanctuary and protection, that was to represent the antlers of a deer, and it can
yeah."
also represent a tree. Then you would also have, of course, I'll bring out. Let's just see. I'll bring out the runes. Let's see what animals may be with us here. Maybe in the chat. Spirit animals. Okay, so we have Othala, which is a represents the divine feminine here. It's supposed to be the mother goddess. Let's take a look here. Next one, Rytho. So Rytho being the sun, but you can associate this. This is actually associated with horses. So because the Rytho represents Odin's chariot, or Odin's chariot was pulled by horses, and he had an eight-legged horse, and that pulled his chariot across the sky. And the next rune I got is this is Yara. This represents 1 year. So just looking at the runes, I think this is talking about a new journey and a new year. And cycle is ending and another one's beginning. So that when we talk about horses, that going into the new year, is what I'm reading from this rune. Like going into the new year, you can meditate on horse, and that the horse spirit animal guides your momentum forward. So, right, like if you set intention for your new year, you want that to keep moving. You want that to be making progress, and you can ask for a horse to help guide you through that and make sure that you're staying on track with your progress, that you are still following that forward momentum.
But
And
and animals too, whether it be cats or dogs or anything, they can see in a brighter spectrum of light than we can. So if you got, let's say, you got past relatives that still come around the house, maybe you got um, spirits that come and visit. You don't necessarily see it with your own eyes, but your animals can see it, and
right,
sometimes you'll see them look off into a corner, or maybe brush up against a table leg or something, because there's a person or a spirit of a loved one that is still coming around and sitting in that spot. And your animals can see that they can see it, almost certain they can hear it, but they can see, but they see things. And one of my first ET experiences, one of my first ones that I can recall, um, my cat was sitting there looking directly at the same thing I was looking at, which is validated proof that there was an ET in front of me. But how many times that ET maybe came around at night while I was sleeping that the cat saw? Because one thing to remember is when animals can see in that brighter spectrum, so and they get accustomed to that, so they may see that person or that whatever that spirit coming around all the time. We don't see it, but they do, and they get so accustomed to it that they may it may not bother them as much when they see it as it would if we when we first see it. We may get scared and go, oh shoot, what's that? But the animal may have seen that multiple times. Oh yeah, it's just so and so, you know.
right. I've done readings for. I've told the person I'm reading for that your cat is seeing these spirits come in, and I would tell them like where the cat is standing and seeing these spirits and seeing these orbs, and that your cat looks up and you see these because your cat's seeing these orbs come in and out of your home on this one wall, and she's like, yeah, like the cat sits there, looks up like he's like they're looking at something very intently coming through. And I've also had spirit animals warn me and keep some of the negative spirits away. I've had that happen. I know that I had an entity um, that I was sound asleep, but this entity, this presence that came into the room and actually pulled me up out of bed by my head, like
Whoa.
trying to pull my neck back, tried to break my neck, and I yelled out, "I will destroy you!" And this thing, it was hovering above my bed. I could feel it hovering above my bed because it startled it when I said, "I will destroy you." And then I felt it rush out the window. Well, my dog started barking immediately and rushed out in the yard and was barking at it. Like, you stay away from my person. And ultimately, ultimately, that thing had to be dealt with. It's not coming back. It's not. It is not around anymore. No, I took my an angelic task force to deal with it so that it doesn't come around and is no longer a threat. But I knew my dog saw it. He saw it,
Oh yeah.
and he was more than happy to get out there. And he's not a brave dog, so for him to go out there and bark at something that doesn't have a body and has a malicious nature, that's very brave on his part. And I had my dog Sam not kind of do the same thing, warn me about dark spirits, and he would in my dreams he would let me know that he was still with me, and he would be under my bed, and if there was anything dark coming around he would bark, and then I would feel it. I would feel it. I was like, okay, when each uh, beloved Sam, he is warning me that something's here and I need to address it. Yeah, I hope you had a great and delicious Thanksgiving too, Julie. It was a really good Thanksgiving. It was a blessing, absolutely, to have food and family around and my pets around because we have three cats and a dog. And in fact,
Now,
just before I go, so Miss Gertrude threw her brush at me to make sure I brushed her tonight before I got on. She's very particular.
now, a
Yes,
little
and they
story. Go ahead.
yeah, somebody just Joey just said animals are very in tune with the spirit world, and yes, they absolutely are.
Exactly. I'll give you a prime example of that. Back when I was younger, as a kid, I had paranormal experiences going on in my house, and there were times I had one night in particular. I had a spirit. He was angry at something, and he flew directly over where I was sleeping, and basically said, "You're dead." And after that, I started asking my cat, who sleeps in the same room I did at the time, asked my cat to protect me from all the negative spirits that come around at night. So my cat, as smart as he would get down every night when I would go to bed. He would get down. He'd come over where I'm laying and sit next to me for about 20 minutes or so to block all the negative away, and then he would go back to his spot. And after he started doing that, all the negative almost pretty much went away. I say almost, but pretty much went away completely. And then back to when I had about 3 years ago when I spoke to that animal psychic, one of the things she said to me was that he still protects you, which gave me more validation that she is speaking to my cat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and animals will communicate. Because like you said, they can see things that we can't. I was at a private home doing an investigation, and I kept feeling bones under the ground. Like I could sense there were bodies there. Like this used to be a cemetery, and the more I walked around the yard, the more evidence, physical evidence, was left over. This used to be a cemetery. That the house was built right on top of it, and they had a couple of dogs back there. And the dog that was back there, and he looked at us like there were three mediums, and all three of us all heard the dog say at the same time, "I have seen some weird stuff out here." No, he didn't use the word stuff, but
Oh,
you see some weird stuff out there. And he would hug us. He would give us all a hug. He would jump and give us a hug, like, "Be careful." We all heard him say that. He's like, "Be careful when you go in the house. Be careful." And he was just such a sweet dog. And that house was interesting. There was a woman there, a spirit lady that was drawn in by a Ouija board, and she was, she was um, violently killed, but she didn't
oh wow.
realize that how much time she had passed. So basically, she was back in the 40s when this happened,
No
and
kidding.
then
Wow.
back in the 40s, she was really angry. She was yelling at me in my face, like on the way there, and the owner of the house said he had somebody stay there, and this guest that he had was a very large man, and this very large man was picked up and thrown against the wall. And I know it was this female who did this. And then I started to ask her about the man who did this, and he was still alive. So I asked for an angel to come and kind of be our intermediary between the communication. And I showed her him, and that even though he hadn't been in prison or anything, he's going to have a very hard time in his afterlife.
Yeah.
And I explained that to her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna get." And then she was shocked. She didn't realize she was dead when I told her until I told her what year it was. And I was like, "It's been over 70 years since you passed." And she was really taken by that. I described what she looked like to the owner. She had dark hair. She smoked a lot. She drank, but she she had she had kind of a thin face. They
Yeah.
painted what she looked like, and then the owner of the house, after I did this, he showed me a picture, and she was standing behind him in the mirror. He just had a
Whoa,
strange feeling, and it was exactly the person I painted when I was
man.
seeing it. And help crossed her over at peace, um, because an angel did come and get her and crossed her over in peace and helped her. And then I also could feel, in the backyard, I felt a horse back there. And I didn't mention it, but I felt a horse very strongly. And here they had a horse that
Yeah.
they had to euthanize because the horse got bloat. It also
Oh,
had
yeah.
other health issues, and they couldn't save the horse. And the horse passed, but I could feel the horse was still in the yard. And then I also felt the owner's son with me, who had passed at 18. and he showed me what happened. He showed me.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like he was driving. Like he was in the passenger side, and it was dark, and they were going fast. And all of a sudden, I see a tree, and I feel a slam. I feel like something break in my chest. That's the best way I could describe it. And
Yeah.
when on impact, the police said that his aorta burst open on impact. So
Ooh.
they were driving over a late night. Teenager driver, teenager in the passenger seat, high speed, late at night out in the country, lost control, hit tree head on. He passed instantly. And then I heard him talking to me, and then I saw him in a beam of white light, and he was standing there in bright white light, and he was smiling. And he said to me, "Tell my mama I am still smiling, and I'm not leaving until she's smiling too." I told his mother that, and she said, "That can only be from him. And do you know why it's from him? Why it can only be him? Because when he was 7 years old, we made a promise to each other to always stay smiling. I know that's him." And then he followed me home. Her son followed me home, and he said, "You made a friend today." I said, "Thank you,"
Wow.
and I can feel him with me. And I just, he was just amazing soul to experience. Um, that house yielded a lot of evidence, but it wasn't like a malicious haunting. There was like a residual haunting, with spirits coming in. With there was
Right.
a woman who kept coming and making this route around the building, an apparition, and then she would come in and kneel to pray and then leave, but she was not present. It was not her spirit. It was her residual um, presence, that
Yeah.
memories that's imposed in the environment. She probably came and prayed at somebody's grave when that place was a cemetery, and did it so often it was just imprinted there. And there were many orbs coming in and out, but these were just visitors. There wasn't anybody really attached to the property. There was an old man. He was kind of belligerent with us, but he wasn't mean or anything. He was just a cranky old man. But eventually we calmed it down, and you know, talked to him. But he had been a prior owner. I saw two little girls come and go that are visiting there from the 1800s. So before it was a cemetery, it was a farmland with a big barn, and I see these two little girls that would come. But it's and the very first thing I picked on was I walked in the house and I said 1912, and that was the year the house was built. So the spirits were telling me this, and I kept picking up information. It was very interesting, and the lady appearing behind him on the camera like that, she was exactly the way I painted her. That the only difference is that her skin was a little bit like a bluish green color.
Yeah. And I myself have had similar experiences. In fact, I was getting ready to say this. So a couple years ago, every year we go and we decorate the cemetery for Christmas, the Christmas decorations and stuff uh, around the graves, the flowers, Christmas flowers, what have you. And so a couple years ago, we were out there, and this is not a joke, folks. This is real. I got photos to prove it. We were out there taking photos of the graves with the decorations, and sitting. And you did not see this with your own eyes, only in the photograph. Right behind us, kneeling down in the photo, clear as you sitting right there, is a woman praying. Long, kind of
Mm.
a auburn hair, kneeling down and praying at a grave. And she looks just as clear as a bell, like you sitting there. We didn't see it with our own eyes, but you could clearly see it in the photo. I mean, just as plain as day.
Well, I've had relatives take really clear photos of spirits, and I had one. I had an uncle who passed away a few years ago, but he used to volunteer to help with the cleanup of the cemeteries, and that he would cook for the cemetery workers. He'd grill out for them.
Right?
And where he had taken the picture, and this is a family cemetery, so I have a lot of relatives that are buried there, and I have a relative that was as sometimes seen as a spirit there, and that's a different story. But with this photograph, where he was pointing the camera. Everybody's sitting around there eating their barbecue, and then he points the
Yeah.
camera. In the background is the Civil War section, and I have family buried in there. And then standing as clear as day in the Civil War section, no, none of them saw this while they were there, is a man in Civil War uniform, a full Union Civil War uniform,
Whoa.
and he was transparent, and he was standing right in the middle of the Civil War section of the cemetery. Now, I had another relative that used to work. Well, he. I won't tell you his job, but he had a really great photo that he had taken where people that would work at this location, they were terrified they would not go there at night. And so, but the spirit would come out and appear very rarely. And it was a woman in a very old fashioned dress. The dress looks solid, her hands look solid, but it but it's like the head is not there. It's just
Oh,
black and
holy
down
cow.
to black down to here around the neck.
Wow.
And he got this photograph, very detailed photograph from his headlights. And you
Yeah.
could see every detail of the lace work of this beautiful dress. It was a wedding dress. It probably goes back to maybe the 1700s. Just doing some
No
research on this
kidding.
on the dress style and how it was made, and
Oh,
it had to be from a wealthy family because you wouldn't put this much time and effort into a dress with that much lace. I mean, lace was expensive, and this dress was
oh yeah.
covered. It had ruffle after, almost like little ruffle after ruffle with lace, and beautiful white silken dress had lace um, all the way down the hands. You could see her hands, even her fingernails,
That's
very
beautiful.
clearly, as if she's solid. But then from the neck up, just darkness. And
Oh,
this was in the middle of a field. This isn't like around a building or private property of any kind. This was just out in a field. And she would take
wow.
the same path every night at the same time. And that was the clearest photo I've ever seen of the spirit. I keep looking around for it and hoping I saved it somewhere, but it was so many years ago I can't find it now. But it was I've never seen anything like that up close. You could even see a ring on her finger. It was so amazing to see that much detail. And as far as photographs goes, I mean, I believe that spirits can appear on photographs. Absolutely. Like I just gave
Yeah.
two examples. Another one that she used to appear, and you could look through books and you may see her pick photos of Beaver Creek, Ohio. So there was a legend in our area where I grew up in named the Legend of Esther Hale. So Esther Hale, an old woman, and her husband had lived there for years. Her husband worked what I was past. I mean that her husband was like a merchant seaman, and he would go off on those cross the sea, and he'd be at sea for a while, and then he'd come back. And one time he didn't come back, and so she was a widower by herself for a while. And there was rumors that she was a witch and all of this. We know she was, older lady. And one day they found her hung on the tree, and they didn't know if she hung herself or whether somebody else hung her. But near the place where she says to appear, I have seen her image show up in photographs and like public photographs of that location, like where the park has gone in and
Yeah.
taken photos, and seen her very clearly in the tree, her face and her hair. And isn't like I'm making a shake because I would look at that as a kid. I look at that. Am I seeing things? But then photo after photo, years later, still seeing the same thing in the same area of the tree. Only her position would change places a little bit, and that's where she was said to be. Um, Now there was also a legend in the area too about a little girl. Um, who had passed over the winter,
Yeah.
and her name was Gretchen, and the family had built a lock. So this is at a creek. So this is east of Ripple, Ohio, and there's a place called Frederickstown, that portion of East Ripple, where this creek goes through. And he had built. There was a grist mill and a creek with a lock, and he helped fund and build the lock. Well, since they couldn't bury her on the ground, they stored her remains in the lock. So boats typically don't go through that through the winter time, so they would have her in the lock. And then when the family left, the lock was gone. Many years later, and stormy nights, Gretchen is said to be seen walking across the lock where the lock no longer exists. There's some legends to that, and you do feel something when you're there. And I do pick up
Mhm.
spirits, but I pick up more spirits from the 30s and the 20s there. Not so much Gretchen. I just feel like she's residual, and I feel like Esther Hale kind of visits and comes and goes, but I don't think she's stuck there. It's and so there's some truth to that legend. And with cemeteries, man, I've had experience in I'm just getting experience at cemeteries. I went to a cemetery here in Sulphur called McCleary Cemetery.
Yeah.
I brought in my spirit box, and I brought in a EVP recorder, and it was summer. It was towards the end of the day. The bugs, the locusts are out and saying, I'm like, I'm not going to pick out an EVP over this. But as I'm walking around, I'm about to leave, and I said, if any of you have a monument here and you have a message for your loved ones, you're welcome to speak now before I leave. And I got on an EVP recorder a very clear whisper that was not enough to be heard over all the insect noise and everything. And this voice said, I still love you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And as far as cemeteries go, also at Spring Grove Cemetery, people have said they have seen a cousin of mine in spirit at that cemetery, and I feel that I've helped cross him over. This was a while back, but he actually passed away in the 1930s, and at the age of 7, and he had an enlarged heart. And this would have been my great uncle,
Yeah.
buried him, made the coffin and buried him, and people were saying that they could see him wandering around. Well, just to okay, and then somebody's asking why might they be stuck after death instead of transferring where the soul goes. There's a number of reasons. That some people will hold themselves back. Other times people will be held back. Other times people have an attachment that they feel like they can't part with. But in the case
Right.
of my cousin, um, I had a very vivid dream, and it was like a vision. So it's more, when you're psychic and you have certain dreams and you know how real they
Exactly.
become. I was in that cemetery back in Spring Grove, and I was walking around, and there was a bully in the cemetery, a bully in spirit who was bullying the other spirits, and were not letting them leave. And I would walk around the cemetery, and I had a photograph in my hand, and every time I'd walk up to a grave, that photograph would change to the person whose that grave belonged to. And each of these people were telling me about this bully that was holding them back, and one of them was
Oh,
my cousin. Okay,
no
and then
kidding.
as I was walking around the cemetery, this woman reached out to me who had recently passed away. She gave me her first and last name in that dream, and she said, I'm recently been here, but I can help you. I will help you with this. Uh, and I looked at her grave, and it had all these candles around her grave. And
All
because
right.
the people, she was recently deceased, they were coming. They were actually leaving candles for her. And what ended up happening in the dream to release the soul, it was her light and my light, her light from her candles, and the light that I produced from my own soul, kept pushing this bully away, and he started screaming, and he started to shrink and disappear. Then all the souls, including my cousin, that were held back in that cemetery, They told us they told me they were trying to get from me for years, but I was so used to them, I wasn't picking them up. They were thanking me like, we can go now. And my cousin said goodbye to me, and off he left. And he was able to be at peace because he'd been freed from this bully. So then when I woke up, I actually looked up this woman's name. And yes, that was her actual first name. And the place where she was buried is exactly the place in the dream, and the part of the cemetery she's buried in. And she had only been deceased 2 years, so she was recent. And she did help me, and she helped the other spirits there. She was just such a kind light, and she helped me, and with our combined light, we were able to bring light and peace, and let all those souls go that was being held back by this bully in the cemetery.
Awesome.
So
And speaking of cemeteries, I'll never forget this one particular incident. We were doing an investigation. I won't give out location details in case anybody wants to watch the episode and be surprised. But we at one point we were we'd been at a cemetery investigating. Okay, at one point the producer of the show, we were filming for Amazon Prime. The producer had to leave because he was getting nosebleeds out of the clear blue. His nose was just bleeding, and he ended up having to leave. Well, that wasn't the only cemetery we investigated. We ended up going to another cemetery later on, and at that cemetery, at the end, we're all standing there. I got my camera. I'm taking photos. No joke. In one of the photos, you see a hand come out from the trees like this, and he's pointing which direction we need to go. Clear as you sitting there.
wow,
And here's the thing:
wow,
whenever I use that camera, I always get evidence. We were staying at a bed and breakfast a couple years ago, and I stayed in the bed and breakfast alone. They stayed in another house on down farther. I might have told the story last Monday. If not, I'll make it brief. So I was taking photos of the steps because upstairs where a little girl plays with her toys, and in one of the photos you can see the little girl going up the steps, running up the steps, playing with her toys. It's amazing. And so yeah, and recently we did an not an investigation, but I went to a cemetery to put flowers, Christmas flowers, on the graves recently, and we were talking about our loved ones being passed away. When you look at that photo, you can hear a voice come through the photo, and this is exactly what the voice says. Yeah, she's dead. Plain as you sitting right there.
wow. Looks like we have some people asking for readings now that we're. Looks like Marissa. Oh yeah, Marissa 19. Will me and Philip be a couple in 2026? She's asked. So let's see what the runes have to say on that. Let's see. Hey, there's Dagon. There's enlightenment.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. And then we have Gabo, which is gift, but it's also an exchange. And then we have Othala, but the way it's coming across, it's upside down. So it doesn't look like you'll be together, but it says on here that there's clarity. Like there's tremendous clarity for both of you. And then there is this exchange. So I feel like there will be some sort of conversation that you have that'll be a civil conversation you'll be able to have with each other, but it doesn't feel like you come back together as a couple, at least not yet in 2006. And let's see what other questions we had
You
here.
have to learn a little bit about each other first before you can take the next step.
Right, exactly. And then how many kids do you see me having? Okay. Okay, so let's see how many children, if any. Well, this is flowing backwards, so this is, well, let me put this right up to the camera if I can. Put this, there we go. This is Langoose, and it's backwards, and it's inverted. It's a flow, but when I see it's backwards like that or inverted, it means that there is a delay, at the very least a delay. Like children will kind of be a low priority, in other words. The next rune I got is Dagaz again, which is clarity. And it feels like these runes are saying, like, wait, get clarification on that, on the rest of your life before you start talking about kids. Get clarity on you first. Work on you before you talk about your future or bringing other people into it. The next rune is Rytho. And then I got this also. I may pull this, it was reversed, but Rytho. It says right here, you need to get on the right path for yourself. You need to do some inner work on you first before you start working with other people. And
Right.
especially when bringing kids into the equation. That's what the
Sometimes you
runes
got to
are
get
saying anyway.
yeah. Sometimes you got to get yourself in a comfortable position in order for more doors to open up.
Right. And then, let's see, who else? Do you see me having a lung problem, even though I know you're not a doctor? So this is, well, I don't do medical advice or anything like that. But what I can do is just see what the runes have to say about your health.
Sure.
So let's just see what the runes have to say in regards to lungs. So this is Kenya. So this is the rune of wisdom. What I'm feeling from this rune, and I actually feel burning right here. I feel burning in this part of my lungs, like there's something going on there. This rune is saying, please ask your doctor about this. It's like when I see this rune come up, it's like seek wisdom. It's like, yes, seek somebody's knowledge about this so they can throw light on it. I'm feeling an issue like right up in here. So the next rune I got is Nadis. So Nadis is the rune, but it could also be a tight band around the chest. So yes, I feel like this rune is telling me breathing issues, like having difficulty breathing, and like it's a struggle to breathe. The next rune I have is Othala. So Othala as the rune of DNA, family, protection, inheritance, things like that. But it's also female, and I feel like there's a strong female that would take the lead in the medical field. Um, it feels like a female, a woman who's a physician or a medical professional getting involved into this and might be your best source of support. But I'm also getting um, I feel like there's like a cloud that hangs around you, like this is something that's passed down. It feels like an energy that's passed down, that you have lung issues,
All right.
breathing issues.
Here's a good
But
question. Somebody posted. Oh, did I miss it? Let me pull it back up here. Sorry about that, sir. Here we go.
I'd like to get a reading about my current job if you have time. I'm on the verge of quitting and going back to my old job, but afraid to make the wrong decision. Now, runes are going to make a decision for you, but they can give you a little bit of insight of what's going on. So let's take a look here. Okay, so Diana. Okay. Diana Nelly. I'm not sure how to pronounce her sign-on name, but let's just see what your runes have to say about the job. So Flo. So this is Langoose. This is Flo. I'm feeling that the rune is saying that you're where you're supposed to be right now, even though it's frustrating. The next rune I got, this is Nadis. So Nadis is a tight band around the chest. It could be stress, and I feel like you're undergoing a lot of stress from this. I mean, that's exactly what that rune indicates. But then the last rune literally just popped out of the bag. This is Yara. So Yara is like long-term rewards. Okay, so I'm feeling like hang in there. It's going to get better. and that there's long-term rewards, and that right now this is just a rough start, but then ultimately the reward is longer down the road.
Right. And maybe take a few more questions before we leave. Anybody has any questions for Angela or questions for me on?
Anybody have any?
I do have a new show coming out Friday here. It's going
Oh,
to be
I
a
see
fan.
somebody's going to see that. Oh, you're going to see a lung doctor. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I
Go
see
ahead.
that it says, I see a lung doctor Wednesday, and it said clouds and lungs actually. So maybe that's where it's feeling that burning. As yeah, and he's saying it's frustrating right now, but that's an amazing insight. And it's the runes. Only not. I'm just going with what the runes are giving me the impression of. And I mean, you could get your own rune set and try them yourself. And Marie's asking me, will I ever have kids? Oh, let's see what the runes have to say. I'm going to say the runes are going to say yes or no in the long term. The first rune I got here is which is bringing up wisdom again. It's like that's a decision you have to make with wisdom and right, though, and under the right circumstances. Right, those being on the right path. And the next rune I got is Feiyu. Feiyu is money. And I'm getting the impression like make sure you're financially really stable. Right, that you really got yourself together before you bring kids into the equation. It's like the runes are telling you like act with wisdom with this. You may really want kids, but if you don't, if you rush into something, doesn't matter whatever you rush into. If you don't act with wisdom, it's going to be a problem more than a blessing. So make sure that according to the runes that you plan everything and that you're good and you're stable and that you're doing this from a place of wisdom, know when it's the right time, not rush into things. And then Crafty wants a reading for December, and that makes total sense. We don't have very many days left of December before the new year starts.
Oh, that's right. Today is December the 1st already. Wow. Time's flying by this year, folks.
And then Chris wants a reading too. So let's do Chris and then we'll do Crafty. So Chris, very first room for you, Chris, you want a general message. So this is Gabo. So Gabo is gift, an exchange. And I feel like this rune is telling me like you need to give more to get more, is what I'm being told by this rune. Give more to get more. And it's giving more of yourself, like giving more of your time, your availability, your support. Give more to get more from spirit, is what I'm getting off of that. The next rune I got is Kenya's. So Kenya's is the rune of wisdom. This is also intuition. And the impression I'm getting off of Kenya's here is never stop seeking, but I feel like you're kind of avoiding an issue instead of facing it head on, and that you should face it head on. That you need to bring light to the issue that you've been avoiding. It's like you look around the problem. Let's face it head on. Is what this rune is saying. The next rune I got is Ingwas. So Ingwas is the rune of protection, prosperity, fertility, and also very good, strong, secure boundaries. And the impression I'm getting off of this ultimately is like once you are working on yourself and you're giving more to spirit, you're asking spirit to help lead you through this process, right? So you're not alone and you have that support. Once you are giving, a lot of prosperity will be in turn given to you from all the giving out of your heart and out of your blessing that you've been able to give and share for generosity. Okay, and then that was Chris. Let's see what Crafty and what December might hold for you. Let's see, Crafty. Let's see what the runes have to say. First rune, Crafty, and this rune's been coming up a lot. This is Kenya's again, wisdom. I'm getting a sense of meditation, of focusing on light, is what I'm getting the impression of, focusing on light in your meditation. And particularly, I feel like the light of the sun, or even in your meditation in the dark winters, you can start your meditation with visualizing a candle lit in front of you and focusing on that candle, and become one with that light, and let that be your meditation. And the next rune I have for you, this is Othala. Othala's coming up again. Family DNA. And what I'm getting is family. Like, I'm feeling like, make sure that you are establishing that family, that you don't cut family off, that you keep those keep that family close, that you are making the effort to make sure to reach out to family, even if it, and I feel like too, not just the family that's living, but the family that has passed, by going through their photographs. And when you're going through their old photographs of family members who have passed, those family members who have passed are going to acknowledge, hey, he's thinking of us, or they're thinking of us over there, or she's thinking of us. And they're going to come and wander around and visit you and support you and lend their support and their encouragement with you. The next rune I got, this is Nadis. So Nadis is bare necessities. What I'm getting on this, it's not so much, I'm not getting the sense of like financial struggle, but more emphasis on just focusing on the basics, right? Not overwhelming yourself with complex things to do or a busy schedule, but just focusing on the basics. The basics of your routine, the basics, I have food on the table, the basic, I get up, I say a prayer, I have a routine, and cut out from life that is overwhelming and complex. If you have a really complicated routine, let's just simplify it through December. Take that load off. Get that taken care of, so that you're not so overwhelmed in your mind by so much is going on. I feel like December should be a time of rest and meditation and reflection.
Right, for everyone, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. We have the gloomier days, but I focus on light and the meditation, and then spirit, and then spirit will take me wherever I need to go. And I ask the angels, I'm constantly asking my angels, the guides, all the spirits you love and support me, please encourage me and help me through this time. And they're right there. And of course, you can always visit me. I have a web page. You just hit Google, just in Google, just type in Angela Boley, psychic portrait artist. The first result, there's a web page, there's my Facebook page, and you can see what I'm up to. And I'm working on a new painting right now, because I do have some spirits that are coming through some pretty strongly. Actually, I got an EVP at home that it was not enough to hear over the television playing in the same room. I couldn't hear it with my ears, but picked it up on EVP. Somebody saying help me. So whenever a spirit's coming and asking for help, I channel them and then use the artwork to help them and help move them on. And so you can go to my Facebook page, watch that process, or if you want a reading yourself and you want me to do a psychic portrait for you, please let me know. Reach out to me, and I'll let you know what options you have there.
Thank you so much, Angela. And I'll be here this coming Friday with a brand new show called The Fright Files. And we're going to really have a great show. It's going to be fantastic. I think everybody should tune in. You're going to really have a blast. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's going to be a lot of great stories and a lot of fun. So stay tuned and check me out on Facebook at Otherworld Hypnosis, as well as Otherworld Photography, and just on Facebook as Chris Harmon. You can see all my latest posts. Don't forget to check out our paranormal ghost hunting page on Facebook and on YouTube, SWPI Pekin. That is where you can watch our newest episode, which you may see on here soon. It is a fantastic episode. It's a 2-part episode, 2 hours long. And you can watch some of our past episodes there as well, and even interact with us. And not to mention, go to MUFON.com to report your UFO sightings and maybe had a UFO encounter. We don't care if it's 100 years old. We want to hear about it. We want to hear. We love to investigate. I love to investigate the sightings. And if you have any UFO sightings you want to discuss here on our shows on Monday nights, put it in the chat. We want to hear from you. And I think it's been a fantastic hour or so, don't you think, Angela?
Absolutely, it was great, and we had a really great discussion too. I mean, people really appreciate your animals and spirit friends you have around you. They're with you just as much as the living, and make that connection with your living animals, your living family, and then also those in spirit. I mean, they're your support. They're your love circle.
Right, you may not be able to see your animals or spirits that are around you, but you can say hi to them, thank them every night, because they will hear. They will hear you. Just because you can't see doesn't mean they can't see and hear. So yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week. See you soon.
Thank you very much.